Hi, I'm Susan. I'm from Worldpeacefull, and I felt inspired to read a chapter out of my book, which is called A Fool for Peace. The book is really an overview of my life as a world peace clown. I've travelled to 20 countries and clowned on the streets. I've clowned in hospitals, clowned in HIV clinics. I've clowned in jails, many places. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to extend love and peace to humanity. I know that love heals people. Despite what modern science thinks, we actually have a capacity to heal ourselves within ourselves. And that includes when one looks upon the world situation and we can see great chaos. Many people are commenting now on their concerns about the way the world has changed. If you talk to older people, they remember simpler times where neighbours knew each other. They didn't know so much about the world back then, and there was a simplicity in that naivety and innocence. Whereas today technology has moved that fast that many people now are accessing information all over the globe. They're accessing each other through Facebook and various other social media. So our world has completely changed, yet our sense of navigation of where we go from here is still in a very high state of confusion. And coupled with that is a media which is putting out predominantly negative information that creates within people great fear of the future. Now, I've been a world peace clown. Clearly, as a clown, I have a very positive mind. I don't expose myself to things that are negative, although I have educated myself. I was trained, believe it or not, this probably sounds funny, as an economist. I have been a market analyst for 10 years until I found my true calling, which was to be a clown. I realised that life is about happiness. Gross national happiness, the Bhutanese would say. Absolutely, the economic systems that we've created were originally intended to allocate resources more equitably or fairly, but we've seen distortions in that with economic power, and also coupled with that is militarism force. These are old paradigms that we have experienced in this lifetime and prior to this lifetime. Pretty much they were the blueprints set up on the planet in terms of, creating the world we've got today. So through the eyes of the clown, and my trip to Russia in particular with Patch Adams, which was really a remarkable moment in my life. That was where I saw that clowning around was peace in action, and we got a lot of people to laugh. We met a lot of orphans who had no love in their lives. And so I started to move from the analytical side to the more joyful, playful side, and I came to see that that was really my true nature. So kind of, in a sense, the person I've become is one that's fused with this understanding of the way the world works to some degree. I mean, it's a very complicated world, but it's fused with my true nature, which is playful, spontaneous, fun, happy. I don't judge people. I love people. I find no one beneath me. I think we're all equal. I see greatness in every single person. I remember Patch Adams saying that in Russia. Know that we're all great, was what he stated, and he was right. I don't see any ordinary people across the planet, yet most people stay silent because they really feel that they're not educated or they don't understand what others are saying, and I can get that. I wasn't educated either, but I educated myself. That's how I came to the point I am today. I actually, I left school at year 10, and I didn't read till I was 17, so I would place myself probably in that category of many people not really knowing what to do with the future. So given my experience, I've worked in hundreds of companies too, so I've had a look at the business scenario and how people live and work and generate money. But at the same time, I've come out of that and I've come into an understanding of greater freedom, that we can determine our future. We're not as powerless as we think we are. We're actually much more powerful. And I do think the times we're moving through right now, people are awakening to the fact that they really are powerful. And what power really means in this sense is inner power. That inner power is to do with self-love, to do with compassion, generosity, community. These are not, and I hesitate to use the word motherhood statements because often the feminine in humanity has been relegated as unimportant or doing roles that are non-productive. But in truth, the feminine in humanity has actually been probably the greatest foundation of peace on the planet. You know, mothers love their children come from them. Fathers love their children too, but they get disconnected from their families through work. And what we're seeing in the present day is both men and women are being disconnected from family. Certainly in the capitalist societies where we've moved further and further away from community and the simple life. Life's become overcomplicated and electronic. And as a result of that, we've created these cyber worlds, which is what I'm using, in a sense, to communicate with you. So having said that, I felt inspired today through some papers falling out of a folder to read a chapter out of my book called A Fool for Peace. And it actually is exploring the material divide, moving from that to unity. I believe we're at a threshold right now, and I believe we're at a choice point in the world. If we continue on with the way the world's been playing out politics and the speeding up technologically without the commensurate or equal valuing of humanity or universal values, Universal Declaration of Human Rights is probably an example of that. It isn't just an individualist document. It's actually talking about how we operate from a values base universally so that we get along. That part of humanity has pretty much been put to the side. There have certainly been voices around the world who have tried to remind leaders that the human side of us is the most essential. That means compassion, empathy for others. This means accountability and responsibility for what we do. We can't just go out and conquer the world. That conquering empire is pretty much at its end now. We now have to collaborate and cooperate as a world citizenship because a new paradigm is arising across the planet. So I'm going to read you from my chapter. You can pause it if it gets a bit too long because it is a couple of pages. So bear with me as I read it to you. It came as inspiration to me when I wrote it, and may it be of service to you. All right, so it's chapter 20 out of my book. The chapter title is Transforming the Material Divide into World Unity. This chapter fuses the poetic metaphor with intellectual discourse, symbolic of the creative and logical parts of ourselves united. For this integration will surely open up new horizons to transform the world of dreams into a world that is living in harmony in the true sense of unity. Perhaps as this reflection unfolds, the listener will come to sense the shift in consciousness that reveals the peace that passeth all understanding. The sun is arising in my life, and my hopes are setting as the colours of my life become more visible yet blended. I feel the words of this reflection marching across the sky of my wisdom, and I see that life is unlimited. I feel to set free the ideas that spring from the experience of my life and share the beauty that has been etched, the streams of consciousness of a familiar rhythm. The indigenous smoke, potted puffs, sends out signals of a gathering. When we sink into our remote past, there is a biological daisy chain that connects to our parents, grandparents, and beyond through the stages of history as flags marking significant turning points in our evolution. We are currently submerged by the information age that fixates us into endless hours on the internet, trawling an ocean of ideas connected by links, yet unable to connect to the missing link for which we are in an unconscious search. Our knowledge of facts and figures gave us libraries that reinforce structures of a world created from minds that can barely grasp the complex web of life in which we are all nestled as dependent babies. Technologies fascinate our every moment as one plays with a mobile phone like a toy on a tram. Another drives to bend time to move us faster. Another blends foods to reduce time connecting to nature. We have devised patterns of automation that remove us from first principles, for we have no time to prepare ourselves. Thus, we have software packages that give us the speed and efficiency to process, but not internalize that processing as time pressures render obsolete the sheer pleasure of dreaming in fields of flowers. The rational mind places that in the category of holidays or unproductive downtime, that one should feel guilty for when others are working hard. The power of the Protestant work ethic. Yet in the moments of dreaming, other worlds emerge, and one becomes lost in the possibilities moving between the imagined and the actual. Edward de Bono would speak up at this point and encourage lateral digressions as the very lifeblood of a new world. For the modern world is trapped in the mindset of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, dividing, arguing, and critiquing the world to prove one is right and formulating philosophical truth. Yet is anyone really happy? Have we mastered this? To design our lives is not time management. It is to creatively engage with the beauty that lies dormant in a heart darkened by years of denial and silent abuse. The resurrection of inner beauty is to remember the dream of love that finds its peak past the Industrial Revolution, beyond the agrarian harvest to a time period where life was simple and nature was the dominant form of entertainment. A place where we awoke to the chill of the air. We made fires to make food for our family. We swam in waterholes and went in search of food. This is not romanticized, it was living simply so others could simply live. Our true nature is cocooned by an ancient husk grown over the wound, bound by eons of distraction. As we sought to control nature, to play God in our way of creation and harness the power to feel God-like. This dominance is manifested by shared interdependencies that render survival as part of an economic structure rather than a natural bounty. Without this matrix, one becomes vulnerable, disoriented, and ostracized by a society programmed to perform by chasing the carrot of progress in an endless race to the bottom. Yet even in this dreaming, we are learning about ourselves, experimenting with the boundaries of nature, communicating to the far reaches of the planet, bringing disparate or different groups together, and trying to find harmony in a world deeply confused and divided. The systematic structure is a blind maze guiding our path through reward and punishment, which is justified by the outcome of order. Each person socializes into the structure as the wild world of our nature sinks back into the abyss of ancient memories, momentarily arising when we forget ourselves. Yet for those who choose to create more time for themselves, one can stand back from the traffic jam and assess what is really happening. The incessant movement and busyness, or indeed business, is a current that has only a one-way flow. For anyone seeking to flow upstream finds themselves down and out on a dry land. However, one can find a vantage point to watch the passing parade, to look into each other's eyes and look for joy or jubilance, to check if this flow is bringing the sustenance of what we all really want, what we really seek. Yet many do not have time to really reflect, to gain an impression in the sands of time of what one is living for, or indeed where one has come from. For the thought, I did not create myself, that I was indeed created, opens up a schematic of questions within the context of an apparent finite life. The ancient world is calling to us in the modern age, as we are all threaded to the first tribes, and within DNA strands we have known survival from the breast of nature. We have wandered and smelled the signals of nature. We have intimate knowledge of animal husbandry, food supplies, seasonal movements, spiritual ceremonies, star maps, and the cosmic order. Indeed, the ancient civilization of the Maya had sophisticated mapping systems and mystical abilities to not only produce a calendar of time, but to go back and forward in time through expanded consciousness. Mediums do this today, but it is an ancient art form that is marginalized in favor of material certainty. How many have had a psychic thought that someone will ring, or déjà vu, or a resonance with something they couldn't possibly know? These are the folds in the space-time continuum, our natural inheritance long since forgotten. In truth, we are to go back to the future to find ourselves if humankind is to continue as a species on the earth. Our deep disconnection from our ancient origins and profound integration within nature has left us with societies around the world increasingly violent and disengaged as systems slowly dismantle and fall into the rubble of decline. All empires fall, for inherent within power structures are the seeds of self-destruction. Only communities based on natural principles are sustainable and stable over time. The perpetual motion of the industrial wheel of life was driven by the greed of profit, profit maximization. And this was determined by endless inputs into the system. However, the natural unity on the planet from which we feed has natural limits to growth or tipping points. This is the central incompatibility with human control versus natural oneness that is based on optimum regulation of self-regulating systems. The drive to maximize profits within segmented box thinking severs all the parts from the sum of the whole. There is minimal awareness of the oneness as we live in worlds of our own making. Each world thinks that it knows the world. These are unquestioned realities entrenched in pattern making that knows no other way to live in the world. Hence, to not know that one does not know is the shape of ignorance. The fear of change grips painfully in the stomach, and many will resist the perceived loss of security or order, rather than look at the crisis emerging as an opportunity to ask new questions that have not been asked for 2,500 years. This is the reality on the ground. That is not to say people do not watch the natural world on television or learn of the devastation of rainforests, species extinction, climate change, and the endless wars fought with remote and imagined enemies. They are aware But being a cog in a wheel makes it impossible to know how to turn the wheel in another direction. When one has never been the director, immobilized by dependency and unconsciously governed by the apathy of the majority. The disabling of empowerment to ensure that all conform to a system to maintain a production process is our downfall. It is the reason we are unable to change radically. The fear of stepping back into our own natures is seldom tested and is terrifying to many who have no idea of how to survive in a new way of being. Many have had bouts out of work and found the time spent with themselves immeasurably boring, lonely, and with no money as they unravel from the social fabric. The psychological framework has no place for idleness, and it has been socially conditioned that those not working are somehow lazy or socially viewed as proverbial losers. The concept of winners and losers is deeply entrenched in a class system where equality is a dreamy notion written into the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that few actually practice with vigour and unflinching ethics. This divided mindset ensures that the system continues endlessly, as most are aspirational, not inspirational. Any challenges are radicalised and rendered ineffective where groupthink is the majority weight on the scales of change, and business as usual is the carriage of a galloping standard of living. The horse has indeed vaulted without any idea of its direction. The challenge is the turnaround. Byron Katie's work will be central in the psychological reinvention and return to universal truth that our world is indeed a mirror of ourselves. The archaeological dig of ancient knowledge is resurfacing under the permafrost of fixed ideas. As the ice caps melt, the entrenched views of right and wrong, denial of our natural history, business as usual, are having to face change as the Titanic slowly sinks along with the dreams of children. This true knowledge has long been buried, but has been awakening through inspiration and a slowly evolving societal interest in finding the real meaning in life. This yearning is now visible in the mainstream. Interestingly, many more women are turning to this knowledge to know themselves and be true, and thus to take responsibility for a world sliding down the slippery slope of foolish demise. For this growing demographic of spiritual seekers are rediscovering or indeed remembering they are the creators of their reality. This worldview regards the world, indeed the universe, as an energy system. Indeed, the second law of thermodynamics comes to mind. Energy transfers, it doesn't disappear. Matter is comprised of atoms orbiting electrons and with protons and neutrons, pushed together through vibration. As vibration changes, form changes. I'll repeat that. As vibration changes, form changes. Meditation is a method to slow vibration and attunement to the natural system. Sitting in nature is an ideal space as one can harmonize. The open and intuitive mind can feel the energy and is open to observing life moment by moment. In other words, not living in the future or the past, but allowing life to unfold as it does without resistance. This is called living in the now moment. One becomes part of the whole in equality rather than in dominance. This is the first realization of lifting the veil to see reality as it is. So many are governed by a field of thought patterns or beliefs that cloud vision or frame the world in unchallenged ways. These beliefs are very powerful, and I think anyone could relate to the concept of having moments in their lives where they believed their thoughts and were convinced they were right, to find they had misunderstood. This often occurs in conflict as someone challenges our world, or we judge them to be negative in some way. Our thoughts divide them from us, and we create a world of reasons why conflict is justified. Yet in reality, it is simply believing negative thoughts that takes us out of harmony with our natural desire to love and accept what is. We are not here to change anyone. We are learning to love each other despite the perceived differences. The current world order is simply shared beliefs of an imagined community. Most do not know each other, but are connected through media to reinforce these beliefs. The media itself is predominantly a mouthpiece for those who see a world through negative belief systems. It can perpetuate the myths, enlarging the drama and fear. This is what sells more media, as people subconsciously seek to protect themselves by knowledge and are stimulated by the fear. They believe the news is reality as it is delivered without question or debate. The agora of democracy is replaced by a media streaming that formulates the questions and the answers. Yet this information is nowhere close to the real world that is loving, dynamic, and without false dramas. The real world reveals a beauty that we seem to quickly glimpse in the eyes of a baby or in the arms of a lover. Just imagine if it was every day. For that is how I live. Truth is not right or wrong. It is simply, it is what it is in the now moment. I choose to see the truth. For me, it is love of life, or love as life. I love my life. I can love all life as same but different, as the Thais say. What if one was to see the world as perfect, that each person that enters your life is a teacher of some sort? That instead of allowing the critical mind to dictate right and wrong, but rather to simply observe life unfolding without judgment. To see each person has come to assist in supporting your life rather than an adversary, regardless of whether they are positive, negative, or challenging. All is good when you come from a place of peace. This way of seeing no longer sees a person and recalls all the judgments and beliefs about this person. Instead, chooses a fresh new moment to simply see the person sitting there with no colouring, as they really are innocent. This is the difference between judgment and discernment. For example, if I held a cup and were to judge it, I might say I like or dislike the cup. If I were to view this from a consciousness of discernment, I may say it is a cup with a handle and these are the colours, without preference. The new thinking or consciousness is learning to see life as it is in complete acceptance, without overlaying our judgments and social conditioning upon it. This opens up a whole range, a whole new world of possibilities, and we start to see the world in a different way. What if we were to think truth is the reality right now? It is not a philosophical truth of shared agreement of right and wrong, but seeing clearly that this is what it is and accepting the reality 100% in that moment. There is no right or wrong. It is what it is. It is happening, therefore it is meant to be. That is not to say that starving millions is okay, but to accept it is the reality in the moment. What you resist persists and what you look at disappears. From this unique moment, Possibilities are an array before you. You have the power to choose differently. What if we were to learn that any negative judgments are out of alignment with our natural self, and all it serves to do is divide us and creates internal stress? Stress affects the body's biology and one's peace of mind. For harmony to exist in nature, there cannot be any part of the system refusing to interconnect out of a false judgment. The whole system sees each part as perfect for the operation of the whole. It is continually giving. It cannot be self-serving or it will collapse. It is the same in human life, as this new consciousness has no enemies and is guided by a feeling of love, which is the energy of life unseen within nature. Yet it can be felt when one is open to loving unconditionally. Without love, nothing survives. No human can live. It is the central core of peace, and it is the truth. It is what is real. When we love others, we see them as who we really are. When we divide, we are in conflict within ourselves, as we have chosen a negative belief rather than allowing diversity. Very briefly, unconditional love is the model of a natural self-regulating system that has no limits on giving or exchanging. It follows its true nature and is centered on peace that we can only glimpse when we are true to our nature. Our happiness emerges when we align with love and let go of negativity. In truth, the peace within us is the constant backdrop when we drop our thoughts and simply find ourselves giving to the whole system without fear or favour. Few people across human civilization have lived this way, and they have been termed awakened, and indeed they found themselves living their true nature, which is experienced as one with everything or one with life. There is no greater joy or peace than unity. Our purpose on this planet is to learn to love each other unconditionally and to see that the interests of the whole serve the interests of the individual naturally. When there is no resistance, just wanted to emphasize that again. In reality, the resistance we feel in life is a reflection of our own inner resistance with a part of ourselves. We have learned judgment and division. We have not learned harmony. When we find the peace within that accepts all people, things, conditions, we will be able to transcend our fears and selfish interests, to see that there is a very beautiful world waiting to be seen and experienced. It is a safe world, as all who find their true natures are simply loving. Where love is, fear is not, and therefore there is nothing to fear. Fear is an acronym for false evidence appearing real. This is the heaven on earth many mythologies have whispered in moments of inspiration. It can become a reality when we choose to live in accordance with our true nature. Some may hear of this world and call it idealism, yet it is in seeing this world that we bring it forth as a reality for all to see. If we continue to see the division, we continue to hurt one another and we expand the negativity in our lives. This leads us to the very destruction that we can glimpse in the present times. Love is the answer is the message that has been uttered by many wonderful examples. It continues to be the key message of our time. One I am choosing to live rather than talk about. It means I must love those who don't love me. to forgive those who don't forgive me, accept those who are rejecting me, or what I call redirecting me, and embrace those who have come or who have no home. It is to take responsibility for being the change I wish to see in the world, as Gandhi so wisely envisaged and lived. It is, if one wants to know if it is worth pursuing, simply ask yourself, what if everyone did it? If you can't find a better way, then perhaps try. If one doesn't care, then that is the world we create. We become careless. This poem I'm about to read to you is a message, and it ushers in a new world that is the mirror of our true selves. It's one of my earliest poems, and it's called Harbinger. Harbinger of knowledge within the prisons of our minds, you are opening the windows and allowing the fresh air to invigorate our souls. Knowledge is power, or is it awareness? That is the shower of truth from the fountain of love. In a state of mindlessness, there are no boundaries. There are no limitations to what we can achieve. The arrows of words sink into the heart of ignorance, giving it new life. From the dark, narrow world, more light and expansion. More thoughts and tension, where apprehension meets realization. The future it calls and awaits. It is listening for your answer. Who are you? Who will you become? Will you stay true to the rhythm of your drum? Or will you dance to another's tune and forget that you know your way? The child of knowledge carries the utterings of a million voices, ideas enshrined in the tomb of books, speaking to the dead. They are exhausted but alive. Their pain exhumed many questions. Why? We see ourselves in the spaces of glory and embalmed in their story. Alas, it is not our own. We feel alone in the library of antiquity. A messenger. We reach out to deliver the word, and the roots spread out across the lifeless plain. But they will take hold and produce new growth. For the tree of knowledge leaves its warning in the drought of global warming. It knows but dares not act. Where is the clarion call to humanity? It is time to stop the insanity. Wisdom urges you to feel again. The windows are open and the time has come. What rhythm is your vibration? Out of tune creates a new civilization. And that is my chapter. Go forth, tap into your inner wisdom and true knowledge, because really, in the times that we're in, it is the truth that sets us free. And with that, I send love always. We'll be fine. We're on our way, and we are in the awakening of a new paradigm that will change this world and reality forever. Welcome to a world peaceful. Thanks. Bye.